What's the main difference between these people who are abusing and raping? I mean, wouldn't you just classify them as pedophiles, like a pedophile cult? What's the difference between a satanic ritual abuser and a pedophile?
Okay, the reason I'm making the distinction is because a pedophile normally would have a very strong addiction to having sex with children. It's like an overriding sexual attraction to children. And that is not necessarily the case with all Satanist ritual abusers. There are Satanist ritual abusers, probably many of them, who will sexually abuse a child but do not have that strong, deep attraction to sex with children. But the reason why they sexually abuse the child is because it's part of the satanic practices. It's part of their belief system that they should do it. It's not entirely accurate to say this, but it's part of their religious practice, you could say. I say it's not entirely accurate because I don't regard Satanism as a real religion. But drawing an analogy with religious practices, they see it as their religious practice, and so they sexually abuse the child. But they don't have that strong sexual attraction to children, which is usually lifelong, which pedophiles have. So it's not strictly speaking accurate to call them pedophiles. But we also need to make a distinction between the pedophiles and their activities and the Satanist ritual abusers and their activities, because Satanist ritual abuse is in a different universe from pedophile activities. Your average pedophile does not deliberately torture children in addition to the sex abuse. Your average pedophile will not force children to sexually abuse each other, as Satanists do. Your average pedophile is not going to bury a child in the ground, making the child fear for his or her life, and then later remove the child from the ground. Your average pedophile is not going to ritually sacrifice babies or adults or toddlers as Satanists do. You see, we need to have this clear distinction. That's why when I speak about SRA, I call it SRA, and I don't call Satanist abusers pedophiles, although they may also be pedophiles in some cases, because too many people mix up pedophile, so-called ordinary child sex abuse with SRA. They are two very different things. And the Satanists play on this. The Satanists take advantage of this confusion by disguising their satanic abuse as so-called ordinary child sex abuse. And when they succeed in doing that, they succeed in concealing SRA and the reality of SRA. So for example, in Tim Tate's book, Children for the Devil, he mentions an actual UK case where a boy was subjected to SRA and had revealed that to the police when he was interviewed. The boy was in foster care, but unfortunately, the father who was accused by the boy of abusing him and who was a Satanist abuser was allowed to visit the boy from time to time. And when he visited the boy, he did not encourage the boy to say no abuse occurred. The interesting thing is he encouraged the boy to just drop all the mention of Satanism and the Satanist rituals that he experienced while being abused. The father was far more concerned that the SRA not be revealed than the abuse itself. So he did not say to the boy, don't say I wasn't sexually abused by you. Just drop all the drop all the satanic stuff. And that showed what his priority was. Protect the coven, protect Satanism by having that dropped. And then it gets presented as a child sex abuse case rather than as an SRA case. And this is why I say to victims, it's so important if you did actually suffer SRA to tell the authorities you did actually suffer SRA. Otherwise, people will never learn that SRA exists. They will carry on with the myth that it doesn't exist, which will make it so much harder to protect children from SRA. You see, we've got to break that cycle of ignorance somewhere, and it starts with, as the saying goes, call a spade, call SRA, SRA.
How many SRA victims have you spoken to?
I haven't kept count, but over the years, we're probably talking a few hundred.
A few hundred? Did any of them provide any sort of evidence of some of the stuff you're talking about, like sacrificing children or torturing children or torturing people?
They gave me very reliable witness statements about what they saw. The only other way for them to give strong evidence would be to have a picture, a film, a photograph. But obviously, they would not have been in a position to have taken such a picture or film. They wouldn't have survived. They would have been killed for trying to take a picture of that. The interesting thing is that the Satanists themselves film their activities, but they are so far pretty effective in keeping the film in a very well hidden place. But if one is able to find a film of their activities, then it's all there on film. They like to film their SRA, and they probably use some of it as pornography and sell it to make money. But the reliable witness testimonies, I would consider as strong evidence of SRA, because as you go, for example, to the criminal courts, and those successfully prosecuted SRA cases in the UK are an example of this, that you will have witnesses talking about SRA and what happened in the SRA. And if the prosecution is successful in convicting the defendants, that means that the standard of proof beyond reasonable doubt has been reached on the evidence of SRA in the case. Because if the SRA was disbelieved, then the whole case crumbles. Because what the defendants are alleging took place was SRA. And it wasn't hidden or disguised in the courts. It was openly shared by the witnesses. The witnesses were deemed to be reliable and truthful. And so the prosecution was successful. And the very high standard of beyond reasonable doubt was achieved. That's why I say that SRA has been proven in the British courts on more than one occasion, on at least 10 occasions, to be existing in the UK beyond reasonable doubt.
So you're saying there are a number of people in the UK who have been convicted of crimes for satanic ritual abuse?
Not strictly speaking the crime of satanic ritual abuse, because unlike certain states in the US, like Idaho, who have codified a law on SRA specifically, we don't have such a law on SRA yet in the UK because of the general disbelief. So what we have are the existing laws, which would of course cover different aspects of SRA, such as raping a child. Obviously, that would be a crime in the UK, right, in the existing law. Physically harming a child, that will also be under existing law. As often Satanists do, pimping out a child for sex, that is also under existing law. We would like to see at some point a law brought in on SRA, similar to the ones in states like Idaho in the US, because that would not only be official acknowledgement of SRA in the UK law, which could also be used as leverage to get more resources and training for the UK police to investigate such cases, but that will also be a way to bring in much tougher mandatory sentences for SRA, much tougher than the existing penalties for child sex offenses in the UK. But we have had successful prosecutions, and the SRA evidence was not withheld. It was openly shared in court. It was believed. If it wasn't believed, the defendants would not have been convicted. So the standard of beyond reasonable doubt was satisfied.
So when the witnesses, I'm sure there, like you said, there was multiple witnesses in some of these cases, right? And a lot of their stories corroborate. How could one person be convicted if, I mean, it sounds like these rituals go down with lots of people there. So wouldn't it be more of a conspiracy with lots more people being prosecuted, not just one? I mean, is it one person by themselves, or is there a group of people attending these rituals? What do they look like?
You will get, in many cases, a group of people at the rituals, and sometimes they will be successful in prosecuting more than one person who participated in the rituals. Sometimes, because of perhaps lack of evidence against certain individuals, not all the participants will get prosecuted. It just depends on the witnesses, whether they can identify the individuals, whether they have reliable evidence of seeing those individuals committing the crimes. And this is part and parcel of how successful they are to prosecute.